Well, gosh darn it. Welcome to another episode of Rainer on Leadership. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and I don't know how I'm going to hold back laughter in this entire episode because you're going to be egging me on, and who knows what kind of way.
Yeah.
You've probably seen the title of the episode. Our church members cussing more today than in the past, and there's some research behind this, which is why we're gosh darn it. That's so bad. That's so bad, and Baptist of you.
It's so bad. Yeah. Well. We've got a lot of things, but Sam, let me just before we get to our sponsor, let me ask you that we've got. Christians have all this shoot that we say, and it all sounds goofy and the way that we say things. What is your favorite baptized, maybe Southern, I don't know, expletive?
I'm not really Southern.
What's your favorite? Okay.
I'm more Midwestern, but Judas Priest.
Judas Priest? That's not a Southern one, so I don't think that's one that I would ever hear.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do not want to
things.
take the Lord's name in vain. So, yeah, Judas Priest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, things like "gosh" or "dadgummit," those were in my household. They were considered curse words. At my church, I would have gotten in a lot of trouble for saying stuff like that. I say "dag nabbit" sometimes when I drop things or something, I'll be dag nabbit. So
I've heard that one. I don't say that one, but I've heard that one. Yeah, dag nabbit. Yeah. Oh man, I'm just wondering. I'm wondering about I'm wondering about our YouTube channel. We're not monetized on YouTube. We don't do that on YouTube, but I'm wondering if we get like dinged for all of these. We'll find out.
I seriously doubt dag nabbit is in the dinging category.
Well, I don't have a segue to Southern Seminary because since we're talking about cussing, it's probably not the best segue, but I'll just say they've got some really good stuff that you should check out. I know you've heard of Southern Seminary. If you haven't, like, where have you been? This is like the world's premier seminary, one of the most respected theological institutions anywhere in the world. But don't miss the practical stuff that they can offer you. They've got a great Doctor of Ministry program. I absolutely love this program. I actually went to Southern for my master's and had a great time there. Beautiful, beautiful campus, incredible on-campus experience. They've got some great online programs as well. But what we want you to check out is our Doctor of Ministry program. Get solutions. Not only will you get an academic and theological foundation that you expect at Southern, but you will get practical solutions as well. So go to sbts.edu/solutions. Link in the show notes, sbts.edu/solutions. All right, Josh, let's go over the research.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I did some research while you were doing the spot. I was just going to say that I did some research while you were doing the spot on just like looked it up. Shucks, gadzooks, holy mackerel.
I've not heard. Who says gadzooks?
Oh, I've heard it. I really do think you don't. I mean, I know you don't live in the South because you're down there in your what is it called? Snowbirds Haven down there.
Jeez Louise.
Great Caesar's Ghost. HE double hockey sticks.
I've heard that one. Yeah, I hear Jeez Louise a lot. I don't know why. Jeez Louise?
Jeez Louise. Yeah, so anyways, that's my research. But you have much more peer-reviewed type of research going on. What is yours?
Okay, so to answer the question, are church members cussing more today than in the past? The answer is yes. There's some studies on transcripts, particularly with books, and these studies point to a general increase of 80%. So we are now cussing. We're using expletives 80% more today than we have in the past. And that surprised me. So I forget where I read this. I'm just, I like to read. I'm going, oh my goodness. I kind of had noticed in my own church more cussing. Like, because when I first started in ministry, it's like, man, that was a big no-no. And I grew up that way. Like, if I had said a cuss word in public with my parents, watch out. They'd be whipping my behind, and I'd be saying Judas Priest because it would hurt. But People are cussing more. That we know. So
Yeah.
there is more cussing. But let me ask you, Josh, is this a real problem? Should we be concerned? Are you and I just kind of really diving into nuance that is completely irrelevant, or is this a thing?
Well, nuance is helpful and it is never irrelevant, I don't think. I think, on one hand, I don't necessarily believe this is a problem. I'm around church people quite a bit. I don't see an increase in cursing or cussing amongst church members, not at my church, not at the churches I've pastored. I think 80% of authors are notoriously bad language. And so that may be a thing. I think we can also anecdotally see this from television. And even I've noticed it. I listen to country music. I've noticed quite a bit more cussing in country music than in the past. It's just become more prevalent. So I do think it's a thing. Now, whether or not it's an important thing, well, I think we should honor God with our words. I think we need to be careful in how we speak. Our show primarily, is listened to by leaders of churches. A lot of them preach. I think it's an important thing that if you are using cursed language in your everyday life, you're running the risk of doing that in the pulpit, something you probably don't want to do. So I think it could be a thing. So I don't think it's a massive issue. I just think it's something that we need to think through and maybe bring up because it's becoming much more prevalent.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think you're generally correct. But you know, I, I don't necessarily like people who overuse expletives. If I'm at a ball game, for instance, and my kids are around a bunch of cussing, I just it rubs me the wrong way. I've noticed that at sporting events more. I mean, there could be boatloads of kids, and f-bombs are dropping everywhere, and these people who are half drunk are yelling these words. So I understand that people who aren't believers, we can't expect them to talk like they are growing in Christ, of course. But I do think that it is somewhat of an issue in terms of cultural problems. Not in the top 10, probably not in the top 25. But I do think it's an issue, and I don't want it to bleed into the church. I think that part of the sanctification process is us being more careful with our words.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of different kind of takes on this. One, I will just say that what I talk to my boys about, I have 3 boys, preteen and 2 teenagers, and we talk about language and those sort of things. What I teach them, what I would think that any adult would agree with, is that there's no such thing as a bad or a good word. There's just appropriate and inappropriate words. There are words in certain settings that you just should not say in that setting that in other settings would be appropriate. And you can think of like any of the big curse words out there. I don't really understand the F-bomb one. I just don't know that there's ever an appropriate term for that. Maybe in different cultures or different English-speaking cultures. But that's what I try to teach my kids, and that, because what that does is it broadens the use of language, meaning you can say perfectly acceptable words in an inappropriate way or in a mean way, and that would be just as bad. And so somebody, and that helps to clarify things. That's why, like, if you're sharing the gospel with somebody, or you just met somebody, or your uncle is at a family reunion and he says a couple bad words, it's not necessarily that they're bad. It just may be that you're not used to them or it's not inappropriate. So you can see past it. The other thing that I would enter into the conversation is I don't think it's just a growing in Christ thing. I think that people generally don't respect people who cannot communicate without using a bunch of expletives. I think that it's not, even in a lost world, there are certain settings where it's just like you can't talk without using all of that sort of language if you can't put your words together. Now, I understand there's subcultures. You and I were talking before this. I'm the son of 2 Navy personnel. I was born on a Navy base. I was raised on a Navy base. The whole idea of cussing like a sailor is a reality, okay? And so I understand there are some settings, but even those, when a commanding officer was involved, the language cleared up. Even those when maybe a seaman's wife was nearby, the language cleared up. And so there's ways to be appropriate and inappropriate. And that's really what I would invite people to think along, because that broadens the conversation much wider than just four-letter words.
Yeah, and I know James 3 is not just about four-letter words. I mean, taming the
Right.
tongue. Like, that involves, a whole host of issues where you could be using language or your words to tear somebody down or to gain leverage over someone,
Right.
to exercise power in ways that you shouldn't. So it's not just cussing. And I also want to point out, and this is a bit nerdy theological thing, the whole idea of taking the Lord's name in vain. In my view, taking the Lord's name in vain, it's not just the GD kind of stuff. Like, I don't say that. I don't like that. I don't want to hear it. And I do think that that is inappropriate. And frankly, if you're using it in certain ways, sinful. I mean, it's just sinful. But to take the Lord's name in vain means you're using God's name to gain leverage for yourself. It's not just cussing. It's bigger than that. It's leverage for power. And I want to point that out, that this issue is more broad than just four-letter words, as you mentioned. But the point of the episode is, are your church members cussing more? Yeah, they are. Unless you're at a really unique church, they are.
I do, you and I were talking about it. I've noticed it more. There are people, I don't think it's prevalent in our church, but there's certain settings where it's just some men around, and you'll notice that a couple of them will just use language that I don't think it's bad. It's just kind of shocking if you've grown up in church circles. You're like, that used to not be a thing. That used to be a thing that would have not been used, especially around the pastor. I mean, how many times have we been in a setting where somebody says, "Oh, excuse my language, pastor," and I'm always just like, either say it or stop apologizing about it because you're getting on my nerves. like I can't stand the whole apology for cussing and then no attempt to try to not cuss. So there's that. I think so. Let me ask you, Sam, how should you handle, or how should someone handle people cussing in front of you?
Well, one, if it's a bunch of men with chainsaws during hurricane relief work, I don't care. You threw a chain and you're mad. Like, it does not bother me. I get the moment. I get the word. Let's just move on. You don't have to apologize. So there's a spectrum here. There are degrees of use. Obviously, be careful with your words and who you say them around. But, there's times when if somebody cusses in front of me and, like you said, it's in a certain setting, whatever, it doesn't bother me. I try to watch my words as a pastor because I do think we need to be held to a higher standard. So, when the pastor's cussing all the time, that's just weird. Like, I don't, like, that's just weird. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. But I don't mind generally if it's in a, kind of in an appropriate setting. That being said, back to the idea of a ball game. If I've got my 8-year-old and my 9-year-old a ball game, and you're using words like that, they're having to ask me, they can tell that it's a bad word, or you're using very derogatory language to demean other people, and it's at a heightened level, and you're loud and you're using it often. I've done that. I've turned around and I've said something to someone. I'm saying, you will not talk that way around my children. And I'll be very firm with them. Now, if they get mad at a play, the third baseman misses a throw or something or whatever, and the word slips out, whatever. I would not turn around and say something to you. I'm just saying, if you are inning after inning saying something and it's just over the top and around my children, yes, I have a duty to protect my children from the assault of your words, and I will. So it really just depends, man. It really depends. I hate to be that kind of wishy-washy on it, but yeah, there's certain settings where it wouldn't bother me at all, and then there's other settings where I'm actually going to say something.
I agree. I think I don't know. I really haven't thought about it enough to say whether or not I don't know that I would really correct anybody unless it was vulgar or derogatory. If somebody says something that's vulgar or derogatory, even if they're not using bad language, I would probably still like. I mean, the reprimand can be as much as me just like scrunching up my face and shaking my head, like, don't do that. Or as much as don't talk that way. Don't talk that way to her. Don't talk that way to them. You're not allowed to say those things. So, and I have done both of those. I have been in situations where I've said, that's not good. But it's not the vocabulary selection that I'm trying to undermine as a pastor or cut through as a pastor. It's the intent and it's the damage that's done. You brought up James and the tongue and setting a fire. I think that's the same thing. There are some people that even think or theorize that some of the words that Paul used were exaggerative or expletive, if you want to use that sort of language.
The translators get me, man. They
Yeah.
get me because I don't want to say that there are vulgarities in the Bible. I don't think the Holy Spirit inspired vulgarities, but there are curse words in the Bible. I think that's pretty clear. There's strong language, not vulgarities, but strong language. And I know translators very much differ on this, and there's all sorts of debate about it. But man, some translations, not all, you go, really? Really? That's the way you're going to translate this? This is soft because this language is much stronger in the original language.
Yeah, I just don't see an example where a Christian, if your language is under control, which we know that that's explicit in Scripture. You're supposed to have your language under control. You're supposed to have your body and your mind and your language. If that's under control, that you would ever use vulgar language or derogatory, demeaning, racist, anything like that, you would never do that if you're under control. Now, whether or not you would use expletive or an exaggerative or a hyperbolic sort of language, I think you could in certain settings do that in certain ways, but again, always being appropriate and never inappropriate. So, have we?
I speak in
enough?
hyperbole all the time. I think we've done a whole episode on that of like speaking in hyperbole.
I think every episode is you speaking in hyperbole.
I'm just saying we've done an episode on hyperbole. No, but that's my personality,
Right.
And it used to bother me a little bit about myself. The older I get, the less I care. But I want to be careful with my terms. But yeah, I'm gonna speak in hyperbole. That's just who I am. And if you can't pick up on that, like, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. That's just the way that I am. And I'm going to be intense. I'm going to be passionate.
There should be like a listener's discretion advisory at the Sam is going to say something hyperbolic. Don't let it get you all up twisted.
I have a lot of energy. Yeah. And listen, we do radio. Okay. This is radio. And we don't want to be boring. So, I mean, yeah, I'm going to speak in hyperbole some. I preach that way too. And I have to watch it. You do have to be careful because hyperbole can lead you into deceit and instead of emphasis. So I try to use it for emphasis. I don't always get that one exactly right, but yeah, but I think the idea of like taming the tongue is all of that, right? It's all of that. It's not just, well, you said a 4-letter word. It's leverage for power. It's deceit through hyperbole. It's derogatory or vulgarities. There's a whole idea of like what language is. That's a whole nother field of study too, and don't necessarily want to get into all that. But as a pastor, I think we need to be concerned about all of it because we holistically care about people. And so if there is somebody in your church that is known to use a lot of vulgarities, a lot of language, a lot of expletives, it may be something that you need to point out. Go talk to that person. If it's the one cuss word that slipped out, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
No, I mean, I promise you, even if they don't react, they caught that they said that in front of you. It's an odd thing in their brain, and they're like, ugh, that felt weird. I've gotten text messages before that's like, hey, man, I shouldn't have said X, Y, Z around you. And I'll tell you, that's a differently challenging conversation because I want to always be like, number one, I wasn't offended. Number two, if you if you feel that you shouldn't have said it around me, I'm not any more special than anybody else. And so maybe you shouldn't say things like that at all, And so those
Yes.
are different kinds of conversations that I love I love the conversation about conversations. I love language and the use of language. That's what we do. And we paint pictures with our words. So it's a fun topic to think through, especially when it comes to expletives. But that's all the shoot fire time we have today before we talk about our sponsor.
Indeed. So, are church members cussing more today than in the past?
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a problem? Maybe.
Depends.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It depends. So, thanks for tuning in with just a little fun episode. I came across a tidbit of research and figured we'd create a whole episode out of it. So, there you go. Hey, go check out Church Teams. They've been a faithful sponsor. They are a great company with amazing customer service. They help churches all the time. Go set up an appointment with them. They'll walk you through everything. So if you're wondering, I know I need a new software system. I know I need to do text to church better. I need online giving, a better system there. They can explain everything. They have a really good team to where if you bring them your questions, they have answers. They can really help you with just about anything, email, text, workflows, website. They have a whole slate of services that you need to go check out. So how do you do that? There's a link in the show notes, but go.churchteams.com. Okay, so the link is go.churchteams.com.
That's right. Thank you so much for listening today. We hope that it was edifying and encouraging to you. Make sure that you share the show and so that we can help more people. Also, check out our sponsors. We do appreciate them, and we know that you will as well. We'll catch you next week.
Jeez Louise.
Jeez Louise. Dang.